Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Game Informer Show podcast. I'm your host, Ben Hansen. Today we're talking all about Days Gone with the game's developers. We have 3 developers from Sony Bend on this actual episode here. We have creative director John Garvin, we have Christopher Reese, who's the studio director, and then we have game director Jeff Ross. So how this works is we have a bunch of questions from the community. We're going to Skype them in, have them answer a bunch of different stuff. So talking about the gameplay, specifics on the lore, the world, comparisons to other games, everything you'd expect. So there's a lot of new answers about Days Gone, so thanks for tuning in. And without further ado, here's Sony Bend. John, Chris, and Jeff, welcome to the Game Informer Show, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Yeah, it's rare we get 3 developers on one of these podcasts, so I'm expecting just a fountain of knowledge to pour out of you guys.
Okay.
Between the 3 of us, it's really just one.
And I would lower your expectations on it.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
you're not getting 3 times the incredible here. You're getting 1/3 each.
Hey, we'll take what we can get. All right, out of the gate, it seemed like the overwhelming sensation amongst a lot of comments, people were saying, they're showing so much footage. This is wild. And from my perspective, I also think it's a crazy, bold, generous move on your guys' part. Why did you want to show so much of the game through gameplay footage so relatively early in the game's development?
Well, I'll take this one. You guys can jump in. No, it's a big game. It's like, you think we've shown a lot, but honestly, almost nothing you guys saw was outside of the first hour and a half of the game. So, so we wanted to whet your appetite. We wanted people to know a little bit more about what the game is, because we've gotten that question a lot since we announced in 2016. Questions like, what is this? Why do we care? Why another zombie game? On and on and on. We thought, okay, we'll show you that it's an open world. We'll show you that there's story here. We'll show you that everything we've been saying is kind of true, and just give you a better look at it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, did you guys read a lot of comments and like, I don't think they understand that the game still has a lot of time left in the oven before it ships? Did you read a lot of comments and have any big takeaways or misconceptions out there about the state of the game?
Well, the internet is very thorough, and they've got a keen eye, and they point out a lot of stuff.
And they're very critical.
They've got their opinions, but the evidence is there. We're still working on the title. It doesn't mean that we can't, we still didn't want to share it and kind of start to communicate the breadth and the depth of the game. But it's alpha software, and we're trying our best to fix all those things.
Yeah, it's still early days.
Yeah.
Early days.
And definitely we want everybody to know is that we're aware. It's not like we didn't see any of that before we showed you guys.
Okay.
That's why, we loved having the alpha footage on the video.
It should have been flashing.
It's sort of disclaiming.
Right. I should have put it in pink or neon or something in there just to make it come through a little bit louder, I think. But still, that was...
Tell everyone thank you for pointing out every single glitch, because it's very helpful.
The world is your bug testers. All right, just misconceptions out of the gate. I also wanted to give you a chance, John, because I saw some people thinking that you were serious in the rapid fire question when you said the origin of Deacon St. John's name was the street you grew up on and your pet. That was a joke, right?
I think people didn't get that reference. I mean, I got it. It's like that's like there's a game where you can create a porn name.
Yes.
Based on that, right? So no, that is not how Deacon St. John's name was. And by the way, another thing I want to correct: there is no town in Days Gone that has 800 people. I was talking about the real town of Marion Forks has 800 people.
Well, that one got me. I thought you were
comments that you're going to find a big metropolis in Days Gone. Dude, the world is ending. That's not going to happen.
I was convinced that you were serious on that one, John, and I was in the room.
No. Marion Forks is a real town, and it's got 800 people in it.
Oh, my God. All right, this is already clean.
The Marion Forks in Days Gone has 0 people in it. It's an abandoned town that's full of freakers.
Okay, maybe 800 freakers, though. You never know. Okay, here we go. User questions. Here we go. Then Tom was like, question you're going to love, John. Here we go. It says, is this game what happens after the Omega strain takes hold in Siphon Filter?
Oh, dude, that's such a great question. I mean, this is an honest pitch from Jeff Ross. At the end of the game, a helicopter lands. Gabe Logan comes out in an iron lung and says, boy, I've been watching you. That's totally not true. Don't print that as being true.
Okay, all right.
There is no connection between Omega Strain and Days Gone. Sorry,
I'd love to see some fan fiction that explores the possibility, though.
Right. All right, yeah, why the hell not? I mean, since Sony owns it, are you tempted to put in some Easter egg for Siphon Filter fans in there?
We're not going to answer that, but don't think we haven't thought of it.
The definition of an Easter egg is if you don't talk about Easter eggs, right?
Exactly.
First rule of Easter eggs.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
I don't want to hear about it.
Here's a classy name here. Avanta Tinkle asks, is Deacon going anywhere in particular? I mean, he has a bike, so who in their right mind would just stay put?
Yeah, of course he's going somewhere. This is a 30-hour game with an epic journey, and it's a physical journey as well as a sort of spiritual and emotional journey. And so, yeah, he starts one place and he ends up someplace very, very different.
But not just emotionally, but I mean, he's not leaving Oregon.
Physically as well, yes.
Oh, interesting.
Well, he's not leaving Oregon. His heart is in Oregon. His people are in Oregon.
The whole game is in Oregon.
The whole game is in Oregon.
Okay, whole
We're not
game.
gonna
But he's going all around this game world.
Yeah, we're not going to get on a jet and end up in Tibet or something.
The final upgrade for the bike is just jetpacks on it. I got it.
Yeah.
That was a question, wasn't it?
I didn't include it, but it could have been. But are you ruling out flying in this game?
Yeah.
Yes.
We are.
Okay, there we go. Unless there's a bug. Queen Basti says, are there landmarks and areas from real Oregon, or is the whole map fictional?
Oh man, it's Oregon themed heavily. I mean, if we take the game to high schools and we give kind of game development speeches and stuff, and all the kids who grew up here in Central Oregon, they just start geeking out over like, oh my God, there's this mountain right there. I recognize this. They totally recognize the entire mountain landscape. It's really cool. So it's authentic. It's Disneyland version of Oregon. So you know, a lot of things are a lot closer together or arranged a little differently, but. Yeah, this is Oregon themed through and through.
And here's an interesting fact for you. So one of our collectibles is called historical markers, and one of our narrative designers, Elise Lemoyne, went through and researched like all this messed up stuff that happens in pioneer history in Oregon. And I'm telling you, if you don't know about it, it's pretty messed up. It's like you can find cabins that were murder houses and caves where doctors, did experiments. I mean, there's just all this messed up stuff, and it's all real. So when you're looking at the historical markers in the game, that's all real history based in this area.
So we're going to become Oregon experts by the time we finish this game here.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good.
The world needs more Oregon experts.
Rhino Shark Studio says, how many breweries are left in apocalyptic Oregon?
Well, you've seen how many beer bottles there are.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's true.
There's at least one.
Okay, at least one. Buswaxer 25, cool, says, have any other games significantly influenced the world design of Days Gone? Like, what were open world, the games that you were looking to for inspiration there?
Oh man, I think Red Dead
Yeah,
is. I mean, I think that you can see that through and through. There's, Days Gone was spare, but it was also very specific and beautiful and inhabited where it was. And
You mean Red Dead?
yeah, what did I say?
Days Gone.
Oh, that too. But yeah, Red Dead was a huge inspiration when we started making this game, and obviously.
Yeah, don't forget we started making it 5 years ago, so it was a lot fresher then.
Right. I saw a lot of comparisons actually to the recent Mad Max, just in terms of like taking care of your bike or your vehicle, gassing it up, all that kind of stuff. Did you guys play Mad Max? Did you see any comparisons there?
We did. There's some comparisons, but that we had been well underway by the time that game came out. But that reinforced some of our decisions. Kind of emboldened us to think that we were on the right track in some ways.
Yeah. Proprietary Windmill, good name, says, will the entire map be explorable all at once, or will certain areas be introduced during main storyline?
Main storyline. So again, using sort of Red Dead as our model, we wanted this epic journey I was just talking about to sort of unfold over time. So there are definitely key places in the game where Deakin takes a journey, and then it opens up new characters, a new story, and new locations.
At some point in the game, the player will be able to freely explore the entire map contiguously.
Yes.
Great. No
And there
loading
are no
screens.
times at all.
That's awesome. There we go. Muddy Hand says, can you actually drink, eat, sit, or sleep in your camp?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So, we use this term, we're trying to invent a genre here, or at least I am, called action survival, which kind of takes all of the really cool fantasy elements of these long, deep sims that you see mostly on the PC, where the player is managing all kinds of things like that. But we wanted to really kind of encapsulate that in something smaller, something where people they can enjoy the heart of that, but not really get bogged down in all the minutia. So we moved all that to the bike, and it's about managing that. I mean, your bike doesn't need to sleep, but it needs to be maintained. It needs and you need to kind of improve it and improve the fuel efficiency. Otherwise, you'll be marooned without it. But yeah, all that survival stuff is on the bike.
Okay. And
We don't want it to be a chore.
Yeah.
No.
well, Fisher JB 2001 is wondering if it's possible to skip the night by sleeping, but if you can't sleep, then maybe not?
No.
Okay.
You have to endure the elements as we all would.
Still under discussion.
It's under discussion.
Interesting. How flexible is that stuff? That seems like a pretty big idea about whether or not you can fast forward through the night.
It would have a huge impact on the game, which is why it's under discussion.
Under discussion, yeah.
Gotcha. Simple
So
one.
seriously, we're still doing beta testing right now. We still have focus testing going on, and we're always going to fine tune the game up until they tell us to stop, until we get it right.
Yeah. Zangmaster has an easy one for you. Can you shoot from the hip while running?
No, ammo isn't cheap. So we really want the players to be able to place the bullets where they're aiming, not where they're carelessly pointing the gun.
Okay. Yeah. So ammo's going to be pretty scarce through the entire game?
Relatively scarce. I mean, we have a lot of enemies to kill, so it's not Last of Us scarce, but it's not infinite ammo either. The ammo pickups in the world that you find, they're not big caches of ammo. They're a handful of bullets for the guns that you have on you at that time. So it's relatively abundant, but it's limited compared to most other games.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, but there's not a lot.
There's just enough to get by.
Very well said.
There's just enough to get by.
That's a headline right there. We got it,
guys.
guys.
Can't kill 500 horde with 200 bullets.
There we go. Corvo.
If you had Molotovs.
Well, actually, you can line them up. If you line up 500, you can get them with one shot. Theoretically.
Yeah,
there was some guy I saw that was trying to kill him with a motorcycle. They could try that.
Yeah, right.
It seemed like a really good idea. I now regret that we relied so much on the Molotovs in that video. I feel like we should have tried out more of the arsenal. Like all the comments critiquing the way we were playing, totally fair. We should have been more experimental through the entire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, but you got through it, so.
Yeah, well, 2 of us did. Yeah. Corvo Tano.
We've actually already fixed those exploits that you guys
really?
found. Thank you for that.
We're here to serve. Corvo Tano says, are there ways to keep a melee weapon you like maintained for your whole playthrough? Or is there a definite point where they have to break?
Well, sort of. Not through the entire playthrough, because it takes a skill that you have to acquire that's a pretty late game skill. But once the player has the skill and they find a weapon that they like, if they want to keep pouring scrap into it, they can keep that thing alive as long as they need to, and they have to be careful they don't start a combat encounter without that thing being fully loaded, or they have to escape before it breaks. But yeah, it's possible, and we even have a trophy that pays off an extraordinary number of kills with the same melee weapon.
Oh, that's cool.
That trophy has a very clever name.
I'm sure it does.
Not to be revealed here. P.S. to the creative director, John, over there. Have you seen Annihilation yet?
You know what? I have not seen it yet. So it's on my list of things to do, but we're busy making a game here.
Yeah.
I totally get it. There's one specific thing that I think would be interesting to your team that I would love to hear your input on at some point, but I won't reveal what it is. Okay, Aaron Bivens.
Wait, is it aliens terraforming Earth?
Yeah, exactly. Why? Ending to Days Gone. Aaron Bivens says, are there any unique weapons in Days Gone? We've seen there are shotguns, rifles, Molotovs, explosives, but anything that might set it apart from other zombie games out there?
The game kind of being steeped in this pseudo-reality that we're trying to maintain is there's nothing outlandish, but there are things that feel like they would have come out of the anarchist cookbook, or anything that a do-it-yourself redneck MacGyver character might kind of come up with. I think against the Horde, we have Molotovs, but then we have the do-it-yourself napalm Molotov.
I heard there was an air taser in the game.
That's siphon. That's not us. Hey, so I can tell them about the bolt, though, right?
The crossbow?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So we do have one. So you burned out a couple of nests while you were here playing, right?
Yeah.
One of the things you get when you burn out a nest is if you find the recipe for it, there's nest residue, and if that's it's a psychoactive substance, and you can craft bolts that are basically berserker bolts. So if you fire this crafted bolt at an enemy, he kind of goes berserk and becomes one of their enemies. So
he freaks out.
Yeah, it just completely goes crazy. So I think that's kind of unique to us.
Yeah, that's cool. So, I mean, the crossbow in theory would be like the signature weapon for the game. Like, that's the weapon that'll come with the special edition, all that stuff.
Yeah, there's all kinds of crafting recipes for different types of bolts.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Jason Wellstrom, here we go. Really, there's a lot of fans out here. Jason's wondering, will there be a samurai sword in the game?
No.
Oh, sad. All right, we got Arjun wondering, is there going to be a chainsaw?
No.
Okay, all right. Talking about weapons in particular, we talked about it a little bit on one of our videos, but I think it's a fascinating idea, and you explained it well on the cover story trip about how you want the guns to feel a little bit crappy at the start of the game. And do you want to talk about that balance between having Deakin's guns feel crappy because it's a crappy world versus satisfying gameplay for players?
Yeah, this is probably the biggest balancing trick that we have in the game, where the people weren't prepared for the apocalypse to happen. So there were people with weapons that were well maintained and stored away, and if those people survived, they may be banded together and they've got a collection of those. Everybody else had to scavenge and find whatever worked, and like you leave a gun out in the Oregon forest for a couple of weeks, it's going to go to shit really fast. So what that gave us was the opportunity to kind of balance the game with a low power curve at the beginning, give us some sort of escalation, and it made a lot of sense for the fiction. So the weapons are still good, but they're not elite. And it forces a player to be smart and use smart tactics. Don't try to snipe everybody from a mile away with an AK-47 holding down the fire button. The weapons are still effective, but they're not railguns.
Okay.
Well, I think the real challenge was the economy, right? Yeah. So because you're, like Jeff said, you're fighting 500 guys, they're dropping weapons like crazy. If the player could just run around and pick up every weapon they would ever need, then there's never a reason to earn trust at the encampments where you can purchase the really, really good weapons. So the loop we want is the player earning credit, earning trust at these encampments, and then buying their weapons. And then those go into your weapon locker.
Yeah.
You have access to them forever, even if you drop them in the field. But we don't want you to pick up, an elite weapon just because you killed somebody who had one.
Yeah, I mean, all the weapons are effective. It's just how highly performant are they is the real question early on. They're not awesome, but they get the job done. They just force you to work a little harder to do it, and a lot smarter.
And then later in the game, the weapons might have a bigger impact, a bigger wallop behind them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get access to better weapons just fundamentally, but then you also get access to larger magazines, which are key for taking on these larger hordes.
Yeah. I forget what their name is, but someone asked if the UI was relatively final in your guys' mind.
Nothing is final.
Nothing's final. And UI is one of the last things to truly come together in a game because it is tied to UX, so the user experience. So, some of the things I think our UI artist probably feels are final, and he might be a little hurt to hear that. But we're always pushing, and the user testing that we're doing, even the feedback we're getting from the internet is, okay, well, here's a theory we have. We're going to go with this. We're going to try it. But if something's not working, we're going to pull back from it. We're going to tweak it. But it's, part of it's final, part of it's not.
And I feel like, one of the things that we find frustrating is that playing the game is different, very, very different than watching the game. I remember when you guys were up, you expressed some concern about the experience numbers kind of on the screen, right? And breaking immersion. And I don't think you guys ever told us where you came down by the time you got done playing the game. Like, does that break immersion? Is that something you would cut?
Oh, that's an actual question. Yeah, I feel like it works well in like those horde scenarios, right? But I think early on in the game is where it really stands out, where you're in the tunnel shooting, and then it's like, wait, what is this? XP?
Numbers come floating up,
Yeah. Have seeing those comments changed your guys' mind on which direction you're leaning that way?
Oh, we were always debating it internally.
Yeah.
So, again, that's not something we hadn't thought of, but...
Yeah, I mean, if the internet wants to know, to look behind the scenes a little bit, like one of the reasons why it stuck around was because it was great feedback for a kill in the distance. In this world, you got creatures that blend into the background, and it kind of helped people. It prevented people from firing extra bullets into dead targets already. So, it was a bit of feedback that we think that we're reevaluating whether if our other feedback systems have come along far enough to the point that we need it anymore. But it does have a great moment with a horde. Yeah. But you're talking many hours into the game for that payoff. To endure these things. So, we hate to say let's make options out of everything, but we're taking this one seriously because this has probably been the
most vocal criticism.
The most vocal criticism. And, duly noted, we're not going to change everything just because the internet says it, but there's certain patterns that develop that trends and stuff that you have to pay attention to.
Yeah. There we go. Mindbad is wondering, firstly, will Deakin's bike have a clutch system to avoid being detected by enemies and also to save fuel?
Oh man, that sounds like a great idea for the sequel. If we ever get a controller with 25 buttons.
There we go. All right.
Yeah.
That touchpad has infinite buttons, though, guys. Come on, it's right there.
Theoretically.
Okay. Secondly, are we going to see other bikers, not necessarily enemies, but just people minding their own business while free roaming?
Well, you'd see Boozer.
Okay.
Otherwise known as Boomer to some people.
Damn it!
No, there are other. There's people in this world, I wouldn't call them friendlies, but there's other people on bikes that are going through the world. Absolutely.
Okay. And also Mindbad says, you guys are doing a great job. Keep it up.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you, dude.
That's a commandment.
We needed that, bro.
No, we're not going to do that.
Rejected. Night Lion says, are there animals that you can hunt in the game for crafting?
Yes.
For crafting?
Oh, for crafting.
No.
Not for crafting.
It's part of the economy. I mean, you can hunt animals for meat and food. And again, it kind of goes to the depth of the action survival versus simulation that we're going for. But they're an important part of the fictional reason why these camps need Deakin and why they need each other. So animals are either they're hazards or they're food.
Okay, and not food for you to consume, but food to use as a currency back in the camp.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Akumetsu is wondering how many infected animals are in the game.
Good question.
Yeah, a handful.
A handful, let's say.
Have you guys revealed all of the different animals that can get affected so far?
We have not.
Not yet.
Interesting. All right. Final trailers. Looking forward to it. Lawrence Kenneth says, you guys keep talking about the freaks evolving. Will we get to fight stronger or smarter freakers throughout the course of the game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How smart do they get?
Well, they're not going to college, but their survival instincts are stronger for sure. They're finely honed, and their tools of destruction are much sharper.
Literal tools?
No.
Well, their teeth and their arms
And
claws.
and their veracity.
the original tools. Deluxy wants to know, what stops the freakers from entering safe areas?
Fences and guns.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Lookouts, snipers.
Okay, so in theory, wait, because there's a fence around the watchtower, right? Like the home base
Yes.
there?
Yeah.
Okay, so they
Yeah.
can't get through there. Gotcha.
And there's a reason, by the way, that each of the encampments is built near a large body of water. So it's either a river that kind of wraps around it, or it's a lake, and that provides protection from a couple of directions at least.
Okay.
Okay.
Elliot Muo's one is saying, talking about like the zones and the enemies in the game, if you clear out freakers from an entire area, will they stay gone?
No, so there's the narrative really kind of has the premise of fictional migrating hordes that are coming up from. It's the Californians invading Oregon again. So all the dead Californians are converted to freakers are slowly moving up the highways and trickling into Central Oregon. So
Gentrification.
when you clear an area of the infestation zone nests in zones, you reduce the total number and the intensity and density, but no, there's always some low-level threat, some minimal amount.
And the weather and the storms play a big part in that as well. They'll follow the storms
Yeah.
and migrate.
There we go. True G, that's me, has a bizarre question. Any thoughts of making a horde mode with the horde?
Horde mode.
Or is the entire game basically a horde mode of just, hey, how many can you take on? Let's go. Make it a challenge, kind of like a mercenaries thing in Resident Evil, you know?
We've actually talked about challenge modes that would dump you into like the old Sawmill demo that you guys saw in 2016 that would allow you to just kind of like play that, and see how well you can do compared to, say, Jeff.
Right, okay. And it's just a matter of if you guys have time?
Yeah, that's far from a done deal, but we're exploring that possibility for things.
Okay, there we go. Kian Star says, hey, Ben Studio. Early demos showed that enemies could use freakers as a trap. Can players imprison freakers with like a chain or a rope or something like that?
You actually do see that happen. The player can't do it,
The player can't. I mean,
but other NPCs do it.
we've actually seen some inadvertent kind of emergent things pop up. Like one time a while ago, Chris managed to shoot both arms off of a freaker, and they just followed him around everywhere. It was like a pet that couldn't really attack him. It was
I actually trailed them all the way into the safe house and trapped them in there.
Yeah, that part can't happen anymore. But the fact that you could like have this guy follow around that's basically just your cute little pet, it was almost like the companion cube.
It was awesome.
It was really charming in a really dark way.
Another good avenue for
That
trophy.
storyline where Michonne shows up with one, right?
Yeah,
Her brother or
yeah,
something.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Will Collins says, besides the horde, what other endgame, postgame missions or content would be available? Is it just going to be missions that aren't finished from the main game, or will there be post-launch support where you're adding extra missions throughout the course of it?
We're in the planning stages for post-launch content, but there's definitely more gameplay after you've beaten the story.
Okay, so not just stuff that you haven't mopped up, but like new things that pop up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Let's see. Zika Peo Gordino says, why does the game have a black screen before and after cutscenes?
Because we have a little bit of loading we have to do. So again, we're still pre-GM, and our goal is to make those load screens be as short as possible, and so they won't be as obnoxious as what you guys saw in the alpha footage.
I'm trying to even remember. I think like Uncharted on the PS3 at least, like it also had those, right, with like the black screens before and after cutscenes.
I can't remember that directly, but it just depends on the last game people played to where the bar is set, because there's plenty of current gen titles that use AAA games that have black screens on load, and some that are built around not loading.
I have bad news though.
Yeah.
Everybody just played God of War. I don't know if you guys are aware of that.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Well, and God of War does an
awesome.
amazing job with this continuous camera. It's amazing. What I would definitely want to emphasize, though, is that those are not loading screens to get you into a new area. Those are literally loading our super high-level assets for cinematics, so that we can tell the story that we want to tell. You don't ever run into those unless you're playing a story mission and you've got cinematics.
Okay, there we go. Chris Sutton is wondering, will you guys please remaster Uncharted Golden Abyss for the PS4?
That has come up.
We're kind of busy right now.
I would imagine. Okay.
But I appreciate the interest, though, because obviously we love that game.
I would love that. That'd be awesome.
Do you think it would work without the Vita-specific gimmicks and all that stuff in there?
Those weren't gimmicks. Those were hardware features. And yeah, totally. Because the PS4 controller is pretty robust.
Yeah.
Okay.
We actually have a plan for that.
Oh, really?
It keeps all of our gimmicks.
Yes, that keeps all the gimmicks.
Including the one you love, which is having to hold it up to a light.
Which sucked. I was explaining to these guys, I was playing that game in the flight out to Oregon, and then everyone was sleeping on the plane, and it needed a light to glide or shine through this parchment in Golden Abyss. So I had to turn on the overhead light, blind the person sleeping next to me, and then hold my Vita or rub it up against the light. It was pretty cool.
I bet you look like a complete idiot.
Yeah, not a gimmick.
Fortune hunting ain't easy, or everybody be doing it.
Exactly.
It's nice to know you guys are still thinking about Golden Abyss, that it's still front and center, and the studio's still really proud of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you wish you had a chance to make more games on Vita?
It was a great platform. We loved it.
Yeah, we had some pretty awesome games in mind for that platform. We loved it.
Was one of them Infamous on the Vita?
Maybe.
We talked about it for a while.
I think we did.
Yeah. John had some really cool ideas for that, by the way. It was, I guess we're revealing that.
But back to Days
we didn't
Gone.
necessarily.
Yeah, back to Days Gone.
Our PR person's going, talk about Days Gone.
Yeah, so my bad.
But I'd imagine through that process, you're running through all the big Sony franchise of what would work for the Vita, and Infamous seems like a good bet.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Sure.
it's in Days Gone as well. Okay, we'll let it go. Andre Simon says, hey, was Dead Don't Ride ever a serious contender for the official title of the game, or was it just like a working title, or what was that?
It was the first title I came up with when we first pitched it. It was just like,
definitely a working title.
Working only, though, because it's a little campier than we wanted the game to be. And, the freakers aren't dead. So it didn't even make sense.
Were they dead back then, though?
For Deakin's state of mind. Though.
Yeah.
It was campy, and it did start as a working title only, but for the longest time, we were like, man, we might, this is better than anything that anybody else is coming up with. And, I dare the internet to come up with something else that I don't know.
Interesting trivia, Siphon Filter was a working title forever, and then we ended up shipping with the title Siphon Filter.
Really? Oh, that's wild. Yeah. Someone wrote into the podcast a while ago saying that the first issue of Walking Dead was called Days Gone By. Was that a reference point for you guys?
First episode, yeah.
First episode.
The first issue,
it was, yeah.
Okay, cool. And it's just like,
we did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oops.
And by the way, it also had Sam Witwer in it.
Oh, that's bizarre. Who was he in that?
He was the tank.
He was the tank, one of the tank grunts.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And he's the main character in your game.
He had no lines because he was dead.
I was shocked by the amount of questions when we posted the story here asking about whether Deakin can change his clothes.
No. And you know what? Again, this was something that was debated very early on. I mean, Deakin does change his clothes a lot. Just the player doesn't have any control over it. And the reason is because the cut plays, the cut, which is the Mongrel's MC, his colors, plays an important part in the story. So how he thinks of himself in terms of his relationship with his past and his buddy Boozer plays a pretty important role in the story. So we control that. We don't allow the player to have him hop into an orange jersey and wear silly stuff.
Okay. Well, But a Junkie has a similar question. Any vehicle skins?
The bike does.
The bike, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So how custom can you make your bike?
Well, you can choose your paint job, you can choose your custom theme skin, but you can't go in and paint each part or configure each one individually. But you can create some really cool looks that are applied to any of the parts that you have applied.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've seen color combinations that Deacon St. John would not like.
So just like hot pink.
Players love it.
Okay, I'm looking forward to messing with that. Scott Rabideo says, because John said there are dogs in the game, can you pet those dogs?
Deacon does pet a dog.
Ooh, but it's not a button. It's not like you can't control it during gameplay.
No.
Okay, interesting. There we go. Bell Montesaurus says, would you ever consider a survival difficulty? The atmosphere you've created in the game really deserves it.
Jeff actually pitched that.
I talk about it all the time, guys. At some point that is in the cards for this franchise. So it's like we keep talking about our one difficulty mode. That again is something that the internet has an opinion on. These two guys have an opinion on as well, but I think that's something in the cards in the future for sure.
Okay, cool.
But it goes hand in hand with our world and our IP for sure.
Yeah. Captain Awesome 13 says, how many people at the studio are building their own motorcycles right now?
There's like a small handful, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 2 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
God, I wish you guys could have timed it so that in the video version, a motorcycle would just drive by in the hallway behind you. That would have been the best case scenario.
You got some people push a button.
Do you guys go on big group rides together?
No.
Okay, you spend enough time with each other. I understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we
We're
had
too busy.
We're too busy to go out for rides.
Right for lunch.
But you might this summer, right? Because it's been cold, so it's just now becoming bike weather.
There we go. A while ago on the podcast, a couple weeks ago now, we had Rue from Ready at Dawn talking about the new God of War, actually. And that studio has a lot of parallels with Sony Bend. I don't know how much communication you guys have ever had with each other, but I asked him if he had any advice for your studio, and he says number one piece of advice was you get so bogged down in the game, but it's important to maintain the studio culture and focus on communication within the studio and not just become laser focused and make sure everybody's on the exact same page for where the game is. So what do you think about that? How do you think the studio culture has survived this escalating team?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, studio culture is number one. And, you know, the team has grown over the course of the last 5 years quite a bit. And that's always been the case is focusing on the team culture. You know, we have Friday meetings for the studio so everybody can sort of show off what they're working on that week or give out communication to the studio and say, hey, what's up? Game Informer is releasing all this crazy content we released. Why did we do that?
I think it's great advice. I mean, I think that he has a luxury right now of kind of being a little bit removed from the Order or from Daxter.
Yeah.
But we're in the thick of it, and I think that's good advice to kind of remind me, at the very least, to kind of pull back a little bit and stick to those principles for sure. So thanks.
And we love those guys, by the way. I've never hung out with Rue or what's the name of the other guy?
Andrea.
Yeah, but we've hung out with their devs, right? So they would come to GDC or E3 or whatever, just go down to the pub and have beers and just talk about game development. Those guys are really cool.
Yeah. One thing your studio has going for you that Ready at Dawn doesn't have is you guys actually have beer on tap in the kitchen, which is pretty nice.
Yes.
Well, it is Bend, Oregon.
There we go. Can't get away from it. Alex Marco 910 says, what's left to fix? We don't have to wait until 2019 to play the game.
Wow.
Wait, what's with the what?
What's left to fix?
What's left to fix? Oh, fix. Polish is the word I would use.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Polish. There's a lot of polish left to be done.
And if people are interested, I mean, it's a big game. And the ripple effect of tuning one thing that changes another, you have to play the whole thing kind of together in order to appreciate that difference. So, whereas before in our previous games, we could probably play through them in a day. Everybody could verify their own content, and we could measure that. Not so with a game that's this big on the core path, let alone much bigger with the sandbox and the side exploration. So,
exactly.
That's where our time is going.
Yeah, and imagine a lot of technical work towards the end there, like specifically with the frame rate. Like, how are you guys feeling about hitting a constant 30 by the time the game ships?
How you feeling about that, Chris?
We're feeling pretty good about it. I mean, we're at a point, when content, sort of solidifies and we get the core content in there, then that's when we can start focusing on performance, really focus. I mean, we're always focused on performance, but that's when we can really drill into it.
Yeah. Do you guys have a lot of communication with Epic still about just using Unreal? Are they pretty supportive on that front?
Yeah, I mean, we're in constant communication.
They were until Fortnite came out.
Hey, we had that same issue too. How weird. That's crazy.
But I think we could safely say we're committed to running 30 frames a second on a standard PS4.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to do everything it takes to get there. And the content is moving at this point so much. We're still trying to finish getting the last tweaks and improvements in, and all those change performance. But the engineering team, I remember before our first E3, the game was running at 4 frames per second, and I was just like, are we really going to do it? Are we really going to do this? And John and Chris, John Hoffman and Chris, they're like, just give us a couple days. And then boom, the next day it was running. I mean, we weren't quite at 30 at that point, but it was night and day, and it was viable. So they just need us content creators to stop screwing with their plans and really focus on improving performance. But the game's different when it's running at 30, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun when it's running at 30. It's not fun when it's below that.
We tackle different things at different times. So when you guys were playing, you probably didn't even notice. But a year ago, we might have had a lot more problems with streaming, where you would see stuff kind of hitching as you were trying to ride through the world, or things would pop in front of you. So that's another issue that open world games have to deal with. And they've made great strides so that you can ride through the world now and not ever see major pop-in.
Yeah, for sure. And still early 2019 release date, nebulous.
2019, I think, is what they've announced so far. So there will be an announced date coming up at some point.
Oh, I think you said early 2019 before. Is this?
Yeah. John,
but I think I got in trouble for saying that too. So
yes, you did.
Okay, all right. Not to drive it home then. All right.
Every answer was bullshit, right? In your question, your rapid fire questions. Yeah,
it
so
totally
you
was.
Yeah,
that lens.
Okay, that was a comedy video. Any other misconceptions? Any other feedback you guys want to address? Anything stand out for the month of coverage? Where you're like, I want to clear this up.
There's a lot of feedback we're getting for sure, especially this week. And the thing that we really want people to understand is, and part of the reason why we gave you guys such a broad look at the title was, this game doesn't speak very well for itself in 20 minutes. I mean, we've got some moments like the Horde where it's just palpable and obvious, but we've got loops in here that are 30 minutes, an hour long, an hour and a half too. So you really kind of have to play the game, and you have to play it for a dedicated period of time to appreciate the way that all of our systems and our unique twists on kind of things that feel tried and true in other games. We've got this Days Gonification of those systems that interact in really interesting ways, when you're playing it. So I wish the internet in the world could appreciate that. The 20 minutes at a Judge's Day doesn't really tell the whole story, and we just hope people keep an open mind and play it.
We'll just invite them to Bend.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
exactly. So
absolutely.
So to me, the biggest misconception is it's not a story-driven game, and that Deakin St. John doesn't have a story, and that there's not an emotional center, and that the only reason I should care about this game is the Horde. And it's like, from my perspective, obviously, story is the most important thing. And it's just kind of one of those things where, it's like, I think I talked a little bit about this to you guys when you were here. It's like, it's a 30-hour game, and I think the thing that's really great about our medium as opposed to others is that we have the luxury of telling a story in such a way that if you're in the open world and you want to be on that path, you can be, but it's got to lend itself to players who want to explore and players who want to be immersed in the world, and yet still have these sort of carrots dangling, in front of you saying, hey, come and check this out because this is going to happen next, and then this is going to happen next, and this has serious repercussions, and Deacon's going to start a quest, I promise you, that will change his life and will change his view of the world and will change how he feels about the people around him. And so, to me, stories have always been about people and emotion and the human condition, and we just haven't been able to talk about that yet to the press. And honestly, I think I mentioned this before, I hate spoilers. So it's like, to me, the less I know about a game, the better. It's like, when I started playing God of War, I didn't even want to hear that he had a kid. It's like, so to me, it's like, I want the story to unfold as I'm playing it, and I don't want to be convinced that, oh my God, I have to convince you to play Days Gone. And it's just hard. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
So I assure you, there is a story.
I can attest. There's so much story. And when people talk about the hour, all the footage we're giving away, I mean, we've got so much we haven't even dropped yet, and this game is epic in so many ways.
Awesome. Hey, great to hear. Guys,
by the way, I also saw some criticism that, hey, there's only one writer, it can't be good. And I'm like, it's not like nobody read it. It's like I've got feedback every step of the way. It's not, it's like I may be actually the only writer writing the main Golden Path, but there's lots of other people giving me feedback on this story. Trust me.
All right, good. I'm glad you got that one out there.
But we also have, but John's also got another narrative designer who's contributing to the world building and the embedded narrative. So it's he's got another voice in the room.
Absolutely.
Okay. There we go. Hey, thank you so much. You've been so generous with your time, not only today, but letting us invade your studio for a couple days, and the game itself, letting the world see it in such an early phase. It's incredible. So thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks so much for watching or listening to this special edition of the Game Informer Show podcast. We have regular episodes airing every Thursday where we talk about exclusive information from Game Informer's cover stories. We have other developer interviews. We have in there fun community emails, tons of looking at the horizon and talking about games. So be sure to check it out if you've never checked it out before. Thanks for watching, everybody.